Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing the Open Master League team that helped me climb all the way up to 3,500 ELO for the first time in my GBL career. The team consists of Quick Attack Zacian on the lead, Dialga as the safe switch, and Yveltal as the closer. I do believe that this is the best possible Master League team at the moment. I was able to climb from 3,100 to 3,500 ELO in only a couple days. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and check out the team in action in the Open Master League. Hopping into the first match, picking up a great lead, Zacian into Dialga. This is a fantastic spot to be in because Zacian is able to outpace in this matchup. Opponent is going to save switch into their own Quick Attack Zacian, and I need to stay in this matchup. Since I have Wild Charge, I need to wait for them to throw because I want to tank a move before I debuff myself. They go for the play rough, that's perfectly fine. I'm going to return fire with the Wild Charge. This Wild Charge is not going to KO, but it is going to do quite a lot of damage. I'm going to continue to farm up, go for another Wild Charge. Since I've farmed up, I am now in a spot where I should be able to reach a third Wild Charge just before I get taken out. That is incredible. Now I'm able to grab both shields from my opponent, and if I can get an energy lead on my Dialga, an energy lead Dialga in the zero shield in the Open Master League basically doesn't lose. My opponent is going to be able to grab both shields from me, but I am perfectly fine with that, as I'm going to be able to tank that no problem. My opponent will send in a Giratina Origin, and it is switch locked, and I'm in a commanding position to close out this game. They fire off the Shadow Ball, that's perfectly fine with me. I'm going to farm up a bunch of energy, switch in Yveltal, and fully commit to the farm down. I should be able to leave with a nice amount of energy. I can outpace the Dialga and reach a Focus Blast before they're able to get to a move. Even though they do have Dragon Pulse, Yveltal still able to handle it no problem. My opponent is going to wait their timer, and they're probably going to be sending back in the Dialga. I'm going to overfarm to 100 energy and go straight for the Focus Blast. Focus Blast will be taking out the Dialga. Back in comes the Zacian, and that is a good game. Bit of a tricky lead in the next match, Zacian into Groudon. I am going to play out the Zero Shield in this matchup. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to win the Zeros, but at the very least, I will be able to get it low enough where I can get a nice farm on either one of my back two Pokemon. They are going to be going straight for the Earthquake. That does get me low, but I'm able to reach the back-to-back close combats. I'm firing off this first charge move, close combat, able to connect. I go for the second, but I lose CMP on the Fire Punch. I'm going to let this go and instead choose to get farm on my Dialga. In comes Dialga, looking for the farm down. They will reach an Earthquake, so I'm going to switch at the last possible second and catch it onto Yveltal. Now I have energy on my Dialga, and the fact that they're sending in their own Dialga means that they are probably very, very weak in the back. I'm going to bait with the Dark Pulse here, trying to grab a shield. Dark Pulse does get the shield. This is massive. I decide to shield up this Iron Head because I want to either grab their final shield or one-shot the Dialga. So I do commit the shield. I'm able to reach the Focus Blast. Decision time for my opponent. Are they willing to give up the final shield? They are not. We'll have to see what they have in the back. And they have a Giratina. All I have to do is avoid my Iron Head being caught onto their Groudon, and this game should be over. I fire off the first Iron Head. My opponent is, of course, going to commit the shield. In this moment, my lose condition is shielding an Ominous Wind and my opponent boosting, so I am going to let the move go. They go straight for the Shadow Ball, and that will get me low. They reach a final Ominous Wind. I'm going to shield this, wait a little bit, fire off the Iron Head in the middle of the Shadow Claw so they're not able to catch. This Iron Head will KO. Back in comes Groudon. Dialga farms down and secures the win. Great lead in the next match, Zacian into Mamoswine. Zacian does win all even shield scenarios against Mamoswine. I just have to be careful that my opponent doesn't catch my close combat. I'm going to shield the Avalanche as this would do quite a lot of damage and continue to farm. My opponent is going to send in Lugia, trying to catch an under-tapped close combat, but I was not going to be throwing there. I fire off the Wild Charge. I'm going to farm up, bank energy, and then bring in Dialga. Dialga is going to be resisting all of Lugia's charge moves, so even if they land the Aeroblast, it honestly doesn't matter to me. Aeroblast is able to connect. I'm going to farm up and fire off the Iron Head on the CMP tied to their Sky Attack. This way, if they want to force my final shield, they're going to have to give me a shield as well. They do want to force the final shield. I do not want to give up switch advantage, so I'm going to commit the shield and farm all the way down. My opponent is going to give up switch as they aggressively switch in Mamoswine. My switch timer should be up soon, and I have the close combat loaded. Iron Head gets the shield. I switch back into Zacian, and I get the snipe of Mamoswine, and that should basically be game over because the Zacian Yveltal core is basically unbreakable. In the back, they have Giratina Origin, and even though my opponent does not know it yet, this game is already over. I'm just going to Wild Charge as many times as possible with Zacian to limit the farm, but even if they get 100 energy, it's not going to matter because Yveltal has a commanding matchup. They get the farm down of the Zacian. I'm going to send in Yveltal. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Moving into the next match, picking up a generally positive lead, Zacian into Melmetal. Of course, if they do have Flash Cannon, this could pose trouble, but not a lot of Melmetals are running Flash Cannon at the moment. So I'm going to let this go, basically daring them to have Flash Cannon, and they don't. I'm going to continue to farm. Opponent goes for the close combat catch onto Togekiss, but I'm able to hold on to my energy and fire off the Wild Charge. Wild Charge connects, and now I'm going to send in Dialga to farm down. Dialga is, of course, doing double resisted damage with these Dragon Breaths, but that is perfectly fine by me. I'm going to be able to tank this Ancient Power no problem, farm down, and leave with a nice amount of energy to throw at the Melmetal. Melmetal is, of course, going to be resisting all of my charge moves, but at the very least, if I connect with a Draco, Draco is going to put it into a range where even a Dark Pulse from Yveltal will be enough to knock out. I'm going to continue to farm, forcing them to fire off a charge move. Melmetal is going to throw a Rock Slide. They don't want to debuff themselves just yet, and they're able to get the Thunder Shock down. I'm going to send in Zacian. Zacian will be able to tank a Rock Slide here. Not super well, but I will be able to hang on, and I'm going to fire off a Wild Charge just in case they catch it on a second flyer. Wild Charge is going to KO. In the bag, they have their own Dialga, and this game is over. Close combat will be forcing a shield, and then my Yveltal can comfortably make 2 Focus Blasts before they're able to reach 3 Iron Heads. They will fire off an Iron Head. I, of course, will be committing the shield. In this moment, my opponent's win con is to try and call a bait, so I am just going to go straight for the Focus Blast. Yveltal charging up, one-shots the Dialga, and that is a good game. Moving into the next set, starting ELO 34.99, picking up a pretty decent lead, Zacian into Ho-Oh. This matchup specifically is why I run Wild Charge on my Zacian, because this allows Zacian to fight back against Ho-Oh. Ho-Oh is going to tank the Wild Charge, they're going to fire off a Sacred Fire. I'm debuffed, so I will of course be committing a shield. I'm going to throw 2 quick attacks and fire off a second Wild Charge. This way I can grab a shield if my opponent wants to try and get off their next charge move. I'm going to switch out and catch the Brave Bird onto Dialga, and Dialga is going to be able to tank this no problem. My opponent will send in their own Dialga. I will reach a Draco Meteor before they farm me down. My opponent recognizes that, and they're forced to burn energy, going for an Iron Head. Iron Head is going to take me out, but now I can bring back in my Zacian, overfarm a little bit, go for the close combat, and this close combat will be lethal. Close combat is going to take them out. In the back, they have Zekrom, and this is honestly a bit of a scary spot to be in, because Zekrom is probably going to be able to double up on Wild Charges before I reach double Dark Pulse. I'm going to try, but things are not looking good for me here. I go for the first Dark Pulse. They will, of course, be committed to shield. I need them to fail a catch at this point, and they are very close to the back-to-back Wild Charges. I will shield up the first. Maybe they try and switch out. They do not, and they just go straight for the Wild Charge. And unfortunately, that will take out my Yveltal. In comes Zacian. Can we farm down the Ho-Oh? We cannot, and we lose the game. Decent lead in the next match, Zacian into Togekiss. This is a matchup that is made a lot better by Quick Attack, as Quick Attack does allow me to ensure that my charge moves are never caught in this matchup, and on top of that, it also gives me fast move pressure. I'm going straight for the Wild Charge. Wild Charge is going to get a shield from Togekiss. Opponent is going to save switch into their Garchomp, and I will respond with my Dialga. They'll fire off a Sand Tomb. I'm going to let this through. Sand Tomb does hit for super effective damage, but a pretty low damage move overall. I'm going to farm up, fire off the Iron Head before they're able to reach Sand Tomb number 2. Are they willing to give up the final shield? They are not, and down goes Garchomp. Since I'm debuffed, 2 Charms should KO here. Togekiss does leave with energy, but I can bring back in Zacian. They'll fire off the Ancient Power. I will commit the shield. I'm really hoping that they do not boost here. I have to watch for the catch. They throw the Charm, so I'm good to throw a Quick Attack, and then the Wild Charge. Wild Charge is going to KO. They go for the catch onto Giratina, but I'm able to bank the move, and this game is over. Yveltal will easily take care of the Giratina, and I have the Wild Charge loaded to take care of the Charmer in the back. I will go straight for the Dark Pulse. This Dark Pulse is going to be doing massive damage, getting the Giratina very close to the red health. Giratina continues to farm. They're going to fire off another Shadow Ball, but this is not going to KO. I'm going to farm up to the back-to-back moves, so that way I have a Dark Pulse to KO the Giratina, and I have a little bit of chip damage I can chuck at the Togekiss. I shouldn't need it either way, but in this case, any damage will be helpful. So this Dark Pulse is going to be resisted onto the Togekiss. I can bring back in the Zacian with the loaded Wild Charge. Wild Charge will take care of the Togekiss and get the win. Moving into the next match, leading into the Zacian Mirror, my opponent is running Snarl, which is fantastic news for me, as Quick Attack Zacian does very well against the Snarl variant in the Mirror match. I am going to be letting this first move through since I'm not debuffed yet. They go for the Wild Charge, and I'm going to go for the extra Quick Attack as they go for Wild Charge number 2. They're probably going to switch out here. I have to be careful. They try and go for a catch onto Dialga, but I see the switch, and I fire off the Close Combat. Close Combat lands. I'm going to send in my own Dialga, farm all the way down, and now I have energy to take on that Zacian if they decide to bring it in. My opponent is going to be fully waiting their timer, and they're going to send in Mewtwo. Knowing they have Mewtwo on the team is very, very good news for me, because my Yveltal is going to get to absolutely feast. I survive a Shadow Ball. I'm going to reach the last second Draco Meteor. Draco Meteor is going to KO. My opponent is putting full faith into their Zacian. I'm going to send in my Yveltal here, because my goal at this point is basically just to get any chip damage. If they even let a Dark Pulse through, I can just Quick Attack down. They are going to fire off a charge move. They're actually running Play Rough Wild Charge Zacian. They have no close combat. I fire off the Dark Pulse. Dark Pulse is going to get the shield. I continue to farm. They're firing off another charge move. That works for me. I'm going to let this go. They go for the Wild Charge. They're debuffed, and this game is already over. Wild Charge number 1 is going to get the shield, and I will be able to reach Wild Charge number 2 before they reach the back-to-back moves. This will KO, and this moves me to 2-2 in the set. I need to win the next game to break 3,500. Picking up a great lead in the final match, Zacian into Dialga. Let's go. They're staying in this matchup, so I'm definitely going to play it out as well. I overfarm by 1 and go straight for the close combat. I typically prefer it if they shield the first one, and that's exactly what my opponent does. This allows me to get some extra quick attack damage, meaning that when I do eventually land a close combat, they'll be closer to KO'd. I'm going to farm up again, go for another close combat, and if they let this one through, I'm fine with it. They do. Aggressive switch into Dialga. My opponent is going to respond with their own Zacian. And since I have a small energy lead, I'm in a pretty nice spot here. I tank close combat, so I'm going to let this go, and I'm just going to focus on getting to double Iron Head. Since they're debuffed, an Iron Head is going to be enough to one-shot, so if they want to keep the Zacian alive, which they do, they're going to have to start shielding. My opponent will fire off another close combat, but this is worth my final shield, because I can get to the Iron Head, get rid of their Zacian, and that way my Yveltal should hopefully be free in the back. Iron Head is going to KO the Zacian in the back. They have Giratina Origin, and things are looking incredibly good for me here. In comes Yveltal. They bring in Dialga. I'm going to bring back in my Zacian to force them to throw. Their Iron Head will KO my Zacian, but that is perfectly fine by me. Yveltal takes out Dialga. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. And now the moment I've been waiting for, getting to claim the 3-2 set, which does bring me to 35-12 ELO. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I do believe that this is the absolute best possible Open Master League team if you're looking to make a push to Legend in this final week of the season. The Zacian Dialga core is incredibly strong, and unless it's going up against a Fairy type, Yveltal has play against basically everything in the meta. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is absolutely incredible. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.